Divorce is infamously one of the most stressful life events one can experience, second only to bereavement, considering the staggering practical and financial logistics involved. Even then, conversations around this have only ever painted divorce as a terrible situation to find oneself in. But what if the other side is not so dark? We talk divorce from a different perspective with therapists Wairimu Gachungi and Tumelo Masalila. Before that discussion though, let us explore how you can optimize your existing financial assets and physical possessions to build wealth. Good evening and a very warm welcome to First Issues. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. Building wealth, we hear that a lot, from buy land so you can be wealthy, and then get a car, and then start your own business, or save as much money as you can, and then you'll be wealthy. But for a lot of people, these things or assets already exist, but they're still not wealthy. So what is the missing link? Perhaps the conversation should be around how you can optimize what you already have to make you wealthy. And to do that, we need to first define wealth, the abundance of valuable financial assets or physical possessions which can be converted into a form that can be used for transactions. How then do you make sure that your possessions and financial assets help you have abundant access to transact comfortably for whatever purpose in your life? We have this conversation with financial advisor at Ignyt Wealth, Seatla, Ratshosa. Seatla, thank you for coming on First Issues and affording us your time. We're talking to you today about optimizing assets to build wealth. Assets, in this case, being physical possessions and liquid cash or saved up cash somewhere. So, in your words, before we go any further, what is wealth? It's a really tough question because it's interpreted in so many different ways. Sure. But we can define wealth from, in accounting, from a balance sheet point of view. You know, you have an income statement, which is where you generate money that is coming in and going out. And then on the balance sheet, it is what sits with you at any point in time. Mm-hmm. So when we come to you today and we say, everything stops today, the economy stops moving. Yeah. And then we calculate how much you are worth if you were to be sold. Right, that is the wealth that you have. It can either be negative or it can be positive. So we are talking about equity in the balance sheet. So if I may maybe explain it with a very, very simple example. You have two properties that are worth 2 million pula combined. Then you've got some cash, which is 500,000 pula. So you have assets worth 2.5 million. Mm-hmm. And then you owe some of those properties. Maybe your balances at the bank, your loans are 1 million pula. We deduct the million from the 2.5, and then we say your net worth is 1.5 million. So if everything was to shut down and you were to be liquidated today, your worth is 1.5. So that is really the wealth that we are talking about. So let us now talk about from that. How then people who already have those assets can optimize them to build a certain level of wealth. We're talking people who have multiple cars or even a single car. They have properties and then they just have cash sitting somewhere and it's just only earning very minute interest on it. Yes, and we do have a lot of cases, more especially in our region, where people acquire a lot of assets, but those assets are not returning anything for them, right? So there's something called return on assets, right? When you have assets, remember assets cost you money. So if you have a house, it needs to be maintained. It needs to be cared for, right? It's chowing money from you, but how much is it returning? How much is it bringing to your pocket? If you have a piece of land,
a piece of land might be sitting there. You think it's not costing you, but it does cost you, because you have to think about it. You have to think about the developments that you have to make there, and you are not making them, so it stresses you out. Every now and then you go there, maybe you fence the field, right? It's costing you money, but how much money is it bringing in? So you only start creating wealth when you put all of your assets to use. If you have a property, let's say you have one house, and this one house, you are staying in it, right? You are a young person, you are staying in your own house. You are paying the bank, say 5,000 pula every month for that 2 beds, right? You can always, if we give a simple example, you can always rent out another room on a day rental, just decorate it nicely, rent it on Airbnb, and then you say 500 pula every night if you sleep there. So if somebody sleeps there for 30 days in a month, you've made 15,000 pula. Now 15,000 pula will directly pay the bank 5,000 pula, and you are 10,000 pula richer, right? Then with 10,000 pula richer, you can go back to the bank and tell them, look, this property is giving me 10,000 in profit every month. I want you to give me another 500,000 that you will deduct from this 10,000 so that I can buy another property. And then you do a similar thing in that property. That is how wealth is created. That is how people continue to generate wealth. If you have a piece of land sitting somewhere, a field, because we know a lot of Botswana have got these fields, right? Yeah. Instead of just having it there, why don't you rent it out to somebody who can actually make use of it, have productive use for the piece of land? If it gives you 2,000 pula every month, you can then go to the bank and say, I'm getting rental of 2,000 pula from this property. I need you to lend me 500,000 pula, and I will give you security for this piece of land, and then you will deduct from the 2,000 pula that I'm setting comes in every month, right? Yeah. That is how then you are utilizing your assets, or optimizing the assets that you have to actually create wealth. When it comes to cars, I've seen a lot of families with like 5, 6 cars, and at any point in time only 2 cars are moving. 4 cars are not moving. Why don't you rent them out? Why don't you create a prestige if they are prestigious cars? Why don't you create a prestige rental business? Rent them out. And if you don't want them to get destroyed or anything like that, you can have your own driver, so that when somebody wants to hire, your driver is the one who's going to be driving them around. That way, those cars are not just idle. Each car maybe is making you 20,000, 30,000 every month. You are able to pay off the bank. But I think the greatest mistake that we make as a people is that we are highly reliant on a certain type of income called a salary. And as long as the salary is coming in, and the salary can buy a car, it can buy a house, it can take kids to school, we just keep on reducing that salary with loans, but we are not actually increasing that type of income with other income sources. That is the mistake that we make. So we have to be looking at all of the assets. It could be a car, it could be a house, it could be a field. All the time you have to be asking yourself, how much can this make, and how much am I making from that asset?
But with every opportunity, or most opportunities really, there comes risk. Do you care to talk to some of the risks that may come with the examples that you've been giving, and how they can be mitigated?
Yes, no, absolutely. Risk is a part of life. I mean, us just breathing is just a huge risk. We are breathing in fumes and all of those things. We get married to people we don't know. It's a big risk. We live in a world where risk is everywhere, right? But one of the greatest mitigants of risk, it's information. You need to know better about the industry that you are getting in, the business that you are getting in. It helps reduce the risk of default or of damage or anything like that. When you know already the risk has been reduced, right? And then we also have insurance as a risk management tool that can be used. If you are in the business of cars, you need to make sure that they are insured, there are trackers on those cars. You are reducing the risk risk, you are not entirely killing the risk. You can't kill the risk. I know a lot of people who can move, they can do something because they feel that they want to kill the risk. You can't kill the risk. You are at risk sitting in your house. You are at risk going out. You are always at risk. But you can reduce the risk by knowing more, learning more, reduce the risk by getting insurance, reduce the risk by creating some form of mitigants to say, like we spoke about getting a driver if you are renting out your cars. It's just a mitigant. You are just reducing the risk. Your driver can still roll the car. You know, if you have a property, you can reduce the risk by saying, I don't know much about property. I'll hire a property agent to take care of my to manage my assets. Every month they look at the property because they know about it. They know how to collect rentals. They know how to punish tenants if they don't pay. You don't know, right? Those are some of the ways to reduce the risk, but never fear risk and don't venture into things, right? We are already at risk just by living. So all we need to do is to learn more about anything that we want to get into. You know, seek the information on insurance, and also try to mitigate risk by maybe getting experts to help you in that particular venture.
In closing, you know, everybody has whatever idea they have about what wealth is. But what key thing do you think is pertinent to every idea or any idea that anybody might have, lest a person has a misconstrued thinking about what this thing is? Yes.
You know, great wealth is having assets that can generate income for you even when you are not active. That is great wealth. When you can afford to actually be sick and be off sick, when you can afford to be in the hospital for 6 months, you know, and everything is taken care of, your kids are taken care of, money is still flowing in, your bills are cared for, right? That is wealth. So the size of wealth, it will vary, but real wealth is where you don't have to worry about your next meal. You don't have to worry about having to wake up and go to work because you need to generate income. Income is coming in and it's enough to take care of all of your basic needs.